Welcome back to the channel, Crypto Trend Trader here, and today we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin. But before we get started, I'd like to remind you this is not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. These markets are extremely volatile, so please trade responsibly and do your own research. Alright, so here we have Bitcoin on the daily, and I do want to just apologize for the little bit of background noise and echoey, etc., etc. I am traveling all over the place for the holidays, spending time with family, but I do want to come back with my regular market updates as well. But you will see some improvements to the overall quality of the videos, and they're going to be starting to stream and also uploading videos in HD once I get back. So just keep a lookout for that. I just want to let you guys know that we are going to be having some great improvements in the near future. So, but that's enough of that. Let's get started here. So we have our daily Bitcoin, and right now I have our moving averages pulled up as well as the parabolic SAR, just giving us a little bit of a basic support and resistance range. As you can see on the daily, we did sell back off below the 21 and 10, and then we were able to save it at the last minute. And then when we got our close today at 7, we did get a pump after we got the close above the 10. And on a daily basis, if we do close back above the 21, it is likely that we would then get a push back up to the 528, putting us back around the 7,500 range. But to tell you the truth, after this many rejections, the way they've been coming through and everything, I think it's unlikely that at this point in time we're just going to get that powerful move back up. We basically just got the push back up of the 528 and got rejected off the 50 as well. So at this point in time, like we've been saying for months, guys, any moves to the upside are likely to get sold into, and the most responsible or intelligent thing to be doing is trading with the trend, and in this case the trend is down. Alright, so and then let's just switch gears here a little bit, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull up a couple of the other indicators, and let's take a look and see what we got going on. So the TJD Joule on the daily, we obviously got that buy signal here. Once the knife came up here to the top and we got that sharp sell-off, that was in fact the indication that we are probably closer to the top than we are to the bottom. We do still have a positive slope on both of our purple and blue here. So at this point in time, it's looking like we could get a potential continuation to the upside on the daily. Yeah. And then looking at our TJD, TD, MACD, as you can see, at this point in time, once the slope is still down, but it is starting to level back off. Our histogram is above the slope of the moving average, and it is consistently printing green bars. So, theoretically, it's saying continuation to the upside, and that we potentially have bottomed out on, on this daily time frame. And again, just kind of corresponding to price action, the way that the knife came up here and sold off, basically you see the knife and then you expect the top within like the next candle or two, which, obviously we did get. And then obviously the way it sold off here and then is kind of curving back up, I think it's possible that if we do move back up here, honestly, if we can either get a close above 7,500 or even a wick to take out this 76, 78 range, I would actually be able to get a lot more bullish for like some potential continuation, like tradable continuation. Yeah, honestly. And there's a couple different ways you could be looking at this, because we could be potentially developing, well, I don't know. Let me switch over here to a shorter time frame. Let's see what we got going on. Yes, we're basically, as far as resistance support, we've essentially just been course. This is an old chart, so I honestly, without even messing with this, I don't even trust it. So let's skip through that and just go over here. Let's pull this back up on the 4-hour and see what we got. As far as moving averages are concerned, that last push up was a denial off of the 200 exponential. But as you can see on the 4-hour here, we are actually very close to getting a golden cross on the SMAs. This is our 55 and that's our 200, and you know, if we close basically our next candle or two in this range, I think we are more likely to get the golden cross, you know, again on the 4-hour, and I think we get a test back up to the 200 here at the 73.81 range. And as far as the indicators look, again, TJD Jewel, I mean, it nailed it on this previous one. But then we did get that massive sell right back off, and then again the knife came down, which is what we were talking about this specific situation, and I want to go into it right now. What you want to see from the knife is you want to see the knife come down lower than the blue and the purple before the blue makes its low, and then you want to see it start coming up. The signal is much less reliable in a situation like this where it comes down after the blue and you know, goes lower still, but doesn't get the stab down ahead of time. This is like a much more ideal situation where the knife comes down here, stabs down, and then the blue comes down and makes its low later on. But these are much less reliable. So definitely, you know, it's not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor, but if you are using these indicators, be careful in these situations. But again, you know, it has been nailing it obviously as well. And then, you know, we do have the opposite on the TJD, TD, MACD. Once we lost the blue slope right here on that sell-off there, and the histogram is below the moving average, you know, it basically says that we're going to get overall continuation to the downside. So again, I mean, I wouldn't be taking any trades to the upside at this point in time. And this pattern right here, that looks like it could potentially play out to be like a head and shoulders. So I don't know, that I would be very careful in this situation right here, just because there is an awful lot of stuff pointing to potential moves back to the downside. But I mean, man, the way this looks right here, and again, don't mind the dirtiness of this chart because there's stuff everywhere, and I don't know how reliable any of it is, honestly. Just because it's old stuff on here. But you know, if we essentially get that test back up in this range right here, which it looks like we're getting ready to do, what is that going to play out to? So I mean, that basically looks like a head and shoulders playing out perfect to me. And you know, obviously the measured move off that head and shoulders is basically it's not going to be pretty, I'll tell you that much. So it would be from the neckline. We've got the break right here, and you know, it's basically going to take us right back down to our support zone here at 64.24 range. And I think if we come down and we test this area again for a third time, I think it's more likely to break. But again, you know, depending on what happens and how price action looks, you know, I'll definitely play it by ear. But it does not look likely that it would hold another time if we come back down and test it. And we could expect some kind of support off of this red diagonal trend line, but you know, again, it's a little too sketchy to be making any trades off of. But in the meantime, I think this area here, the 7,000 range, is going to be a strong support. So if I was going to take a trade to the upside, it would be on the retest of the 7,000, and if I was going to take a trade to the downside, it would be either on the retest of 7,400, or you know, I would like to honestly see us come up here and tag the 377 on the 4-hour and then sell off, which would put us all the way up at 77.31. You know, which would potentially be like an 8% move or so. So there's potential to the upside, but again, you know, crypto trend trader, we trade with the trend, and trend has been down for a long time. Let's switch gears here for a minute and take a look at something a little bit different. Let me clean this up just a little and see what we're working with. So as far as resistance and support, you can see we've been trading in this downward sloping channel. We're going to continue trading in this downward sloping channel, and then inside of that channel you can see the range that we've been trading in is that same range that I've had plotted out here for literally, I mean, weeks. And I'm just going to extend it out a little further because you know, we're just going to assume that the purple is going to be our resistance inside this range, or you know, you could even use the fib level in blue here. And actually, I'm not sure why I have it. I actually really like it better, you know, around there. But essentially, you know, until we break that range to the upside or break that range to the downside, you know, I wouldn't be getting bullish or bearish necessarily. You know, for a move outside of the range until it happens. You know, because the most likely thing to happen is that we'll continue, you know, to bounce around within this range. And you know, obviously this is the key range in this level here at like that 7,083 level. But you know, again, I wouldn't consider the range broken until we get like a confirmed candle close like basically down here in this region, like at the 6,600 range. And you know, at this point in time, I don't necessarily think that's likely, but it's not necessarily, you know, unlikely either. So again, we're basically right in the middle of this channel right now. We got the close right at the heart line, and we're now consolidating above it, this green diagonal trend line heart line here. So it is possible at this point in time, you know, that we could see a little rally off here. And again, looking at this looks sort of like the opposite. This almost looks like, oh man, to tell you the truth, looking at it, not to call out the same pattern like a bunch of times or anything, but this actually looks like an inverse head and shoulders to me. And if this head and shoulders plays out inside the inverse head and shoulders, you know, this could play out as well. So we would essentially get, you know, the head down here, shoulder here, or I'm sorry, shoulder there, neck there, head here, and then again, you know, a little bit of a slant is not necessarily a bad thing in a pattern like this, because you would expect it to be weaker of a sell-off on the second time around, or I'm sorry, weaker of a bounce on the second time around. But essentially, if we sold back off, you know, to this area down in here, you know, we could potentially get something to play out like this. I mean, realistically. I like try to look for symmetry between the points. So at this point in time, I think it's more likely that this is not like our neckline right here, and that the neckline would come back up for one more test. But it is possible that it could play out like this, at sort of like a slope like that. See a pattern that's more likely to play out. In this case, though, essentially, like we were saying, if our 4-hour situation plays off and we get the pushback to the upside before the sell-off, you know, if we get the push up and then we get the sell-off here, that would essentially be the head and shoulders playing out. We get the dump back down to the bottom support area here, and then we find support at the 60 whatever 600 range, and then we get the strong push all the way back up to the top of the range here at 78.54. That is going to put our head and shoulders at, oh look, pretty much the top of the range, key fib level, and you know, that's basically going to give us like that 9,400 range, which would be a massive move from where we're at right now, and a great way to start off this year, which would, just like I was saying, give us an awesome first quarter. And then you know, I think we would potentially be selling back off, you know, for, you know, after that. But again, you know, we could test up here, consolidate, and then break to the upside and get our continuation, and 2020 could be the year that we've all been looking for. So, but in the meantime, I think it's more likely that a situation like this is going to play out. And honestly, looking at this, the more I look at this and talk through it, I think the more likely it is that we potentially get, just like I said, and again, I don't like to draw, you know, like a million of these things all over the place, but basically, if we got this move up here, back down here, and then this one was to come back down, you know, you're basically looking at this type of situation right here. And look, that when that shoulder sells off and comes down here, you know, we essentially get the completion of the right shoulder for the inverse head and shoulders, and then we could get the measure move to the upside. But again, these patterns, you know, are not meant to be traded until they actually like break through the neckline. You know, so you don't want to get too ambitious on these things ahead of time, jump the gun, and then get caught in a bad trade, you know what I mean, assuming that something is going to play out. So again, this is not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. These markets are extremely volatile, so please do your own research and trade responsibly.